again, garden friends, welcome back. I hope you are as excited for spring planting as I am. I have so much to get done before I start planting vegetables next week. So I thought I would bring you along, show you what I'm doing, how I'm getting my garden ready, tell you why I'm doing it, and maybe give you some tips for your own garden. I have quite a bit on my to-do list for today. First, I have to get my pollinator garden cleaned up. I have quite a bit of growth left over from the winter that needs to be cleared out. I also need to get my raised beds ready for planting. I need to add some more mix-in to the beds that have gotten really low, and I like to top those with compost. I do have some homemade compost I need to sift, but not enough for all the raised beds. So I also have some bagged mushroom compost that I'm going to be adding. I also need to fertilize my garlic. The weather has started to warm up, so it's really started to take off. I also need to get my lavender plants cut back. I'm doing this a little later than I like to, but they should be okay. But first, I need to move my spring seedlings outdoors. I'm on day 3 of that hardening off process. Today is a hazy, sort of partly cloudy day. We've got a gentle breeze, so this is a perfect day for them to get some exposure to sunlight and wind. This is always the time of year where my plant room is an absolute disaster. I have seedlings everywhere. I have seed starting supplies everywhere, plants everywhere, growing supplies everywhere. These are all of my spring seedlings. They're just hanging out on the floor because I've been bringing them in and out every day. So I have some spring flowers. I have nasturtium, which is also an edible flower. I have calendula, which is a great, not only plant for pollinators, but it's a medicinal plant as well. I have some bells of Ireland, and I have a variety of cabbage here. I do have a couple new varieties of cabbage I'm growing this year, Bravo and Taurus. Excited to see how those do. I have some spinach, several different varieties of leaf lettuce. This is Salad Bowl and Easy Park. Here I have some curled leaf kale, more varieties of cabbage and broccoli, including an ornamental cabbage, which I've never grown before. I'm excited to try that. Here are my onions, several different varieties of those, more cabbage, and here I have more salad greens, a couple different varieties of arugula, some really gorgeous varieties of lettuce. That's speckled lettuce, new variety for me this year, so pretty. I have red fire and MTO and some more kale. Man, the wind is starting to pick up. I'm gonna have to watch these pretty carefully. Here I have a couple varieties of dill. I like to use this as a companion plant in my garden, plus I love dill, it's so yummy. Several different kinds of cilantro. I also have some parsley, and that is celery, which I've never grown before. I'm excited to try it out this year. And these are peas. I actually don't recommend growing these as transplants. They do much better if you just direct sow the seeds in the garden, but I have really short springs, so a lot of times peas really start to struggle as they get mature because the weather just gets too hot. But you have to get the timing on these just right. You can see here they get really big really fast, so I need to get these in the ground as soon as possible or they start to get tangled. Okay, Scout wanted to come say hello. I think you're breathing in my microphone though. If you grow your own seedlings indoors, and I recommend that you do, because it is so much more cost effective. Aside from the initial setup of just getting some seed starting trays, maybe some inexpensive grow lights, because you definitely don't have to have super expensive ones, it will save you so much money. You will pay $6, $7, $8 for a 6-pack of vegetable seedlings at the store, but you can get a pack of 50, 100 seeds for just a couple bucks. However, if you grow your own seedlings indoors, or if you buy seedlings from a greenhouse, you need to put them through the process of hardening off. This is a process that will help them transition to outdoors, because no matter how much sun they're getting from grow lights or a greenhouse, nothing is as strong as actual direct sunlight. And hardening off not only helps them acclimate to that stronger light, but it helps them acclimate to things like wind. To do this, you want to choose a day that is not crazy windy, that is not raining. It's better if you can pick a partly cloudy or even cloudy day to start with, and you put those seedlings outdoors for maybe an hour, maybe 2, and then bring them back in. And over the course of about a week to 10 days, you want to slowly increase the amount of light they're getting. I also like to leave them out overnight the day before I'm going to plant them. Now, if you're planting things like tomatoes or peppers or melons or cucumbers that are susceptible to frost, you want to wait until after your last frost date to plant these, but all of these are spring seedlings. They can handle mild frost, so that's okay. And I actually, when I plant these in the garden, will choose a cloudy day, or I will plant them in the evening so they can sort of put some roots down before they're faced with that sun, because my garden is in full sun all day long, sun up to sundown. And I actually plant my seedlings under row cover for the first few weeks they're growing, and that's for a few reasons. One is I'm in the Midwest. We get really heavy winds, some pretty heavy storms in the spring, so this helps protect them. I also, even though I'm in a neighborhood, we have a ton of rabbits that roam the neighborhood, like a gang of them, and they will absolutely take out seedlings overnight. I have mourning doves, birds that do the same. So covering them helps protect those seedlings, and once they get bigger, those animals usually leave them alone. Like I said, this is day 3 of that transition process, so I'm probably going to leave these out for about 6 hours today, as long as this wind doesn't pick up too crazy. You also want to be careful of wind, because it can whip those seedlings around and actually sort of cause strangulation, which is like breaking or shearing or twisting of the stem, and then that plant can't get nutrients. So you have to be really, really careful of heavy winds with young seedlings. Okay, enough about seedlings. Let's head to the pollinator garden. Here is my pollinator garden, and I have quite a bit of cleanup to do. I have some hyacinth, also some daffodils that are blooming. They look a little rough. We had some warm days, so they bloomed so gorgeous. And then we had a really, really hard frost, so they got quite a bit of damage, but I still have lots of blooms coming up. Look at these. They're so pretty. This is a bicolor. I also have these ones that are really, really bright, almost buttercup yellow. So pretty. What do you see? And here's that hyacinth, which unfortunately took quite a hit, but still so pretty, and they smell so good. But I have a ton of cleanup, quite a bit of weeding to do. And you can see I have this old growth. I like to leave these stems up over the winter because they can be nesting places and winter homes for a lot of beneficial insects. In fact, I'm going to cut these down, but then I'll actually put the stems in a pile in the corner, just in case there's any little insect friends hanging out, so they still are able to emerge safely. These are dandelions, and I know they cause a lot of mixed feelings in people, and they can be very aggressive in how they grow. They can kind of take over spaces with how they seed, but they are a really great source of food for early spring pollinators, and this is a pollinator garden after all, so they get to stay. A lot of these stems, this is actually hyacinth, I'll leave up for several years because it's these old dead stems that a lot of cavity nesting bees will use as homes. So you can see the holes here. This is where they've burrowed inside to lay eggs. So I just leave these up, and as that new growth comes up, it will hide all of this. I did some pretty heavy dividing of a lot of these perennials last year, the bee balm, the black-eyed Susans, the mums, so I probably won't need to do that this year. But some of the plants, like this yarrow, just sort of drop seed everywhere. So you can see I have yarrow coming up everywhere. So I'll either pull those up or transplant them to other parts of the garden, or sometimes I'll give them away to friends. And I know it looks like I have a lot of bare spots now, but once these plants really come up and fill in, all of this gets so full. I do have a couple spots, like where the hyacinth, once it's done, I'll put some annuals in. I have this spot here for coneflower. You can see it's sort of starting to come up right there. It didn't come up as well as I would have liked last year, so I'm going to grow some more or transplant some more into this space this year because I absolutely love purple coneflower echinacea. It's a native to my area. The pollinators love it. Okay, let's get this cleaned up and make way for some new growth. These are peonies, and like most of the plants in my garden, they're herbaceous perennials, which means they're going to send up new growth from the ground each year. Okay, that is a huge check off the list. Made some room for some new growth. This looks a lot cleaner. You can see on some of those plants with thicker stems, for example, this milkweed, this bee balm, and salvia, I left about 12 to 18 inches of those old stems up. And this is so cavity nesting bees like mason bees, can use these as nesting sites later this spring. Here is my lavender. This is English lavender, and it's pretty overgrown. I cut these back twice a year, once in late winter, early spring, and once again after they bloom to encourage new growth. If you don't regularly cut back English lavender, it can get very woody and kind of overgrown. Now, normally I like to do this when the plants are still dormant, and I thought I would have more growth, but actually, as I look, I don't have a ton of new growth yet, but you can see. Let me zoom in. There's still some green here. So the plants are fine. They're just dormant, which is good in this case. So I'm going to cut these down, not all the way to the ground, but I am going to cut these probably about maybe like 8 to 10 inches from the ground. And this will encourage a lot more new growth that's a lot more tender and will encourage more blooms. I did find some of that new growth I was talking about, so you can see these young little tender shoots, and I just made cuts right above that. So these will send up new shoots that will flower, and this will keep the plant from looking so overgrown. That's finished. That's such a difference. It seems like I cut off so much of that plant, and I did, but don't be afraid to prune. Pruning really does help a lot of plants, especially trees and shrubs. And if you're growing them for flowers or for fruit, pruning can really help increase your harvests. On to the garlic. This has really taken off over the last week. I have it pretty heavily mulched with straw. I do that to help protect those bulbs over the winter. I do have hoops up. We did have ice several times over the winter. Now, garlic is really cold hardy, so snow is fine, but ice can sometimes cause damage to the leaves. So I just throw over a cover in the event that we get ice. I'm growing several different varieties of garlic this year. I have German extra hardy, which is a hardneck. I always grow that. I have chestnut red, which is also a hardneck that I grew last year. And then I have 3 new varieties. I have Phillips, which is here. I have Red Russian, and I have New Basha, I think is how you say it. All of these are brand new varieties. I got these from Prairie Farm. I'll link their information below if you want to maybe get some new garlic to plant later this fall. But now it's time to fertilize. Today I'm fertilizing with blood meal. Blood meal is an organic fertilizer that's very high in nitrogen. Alliums, like garlic and onions, do really well with a lot of nitrogen early on because it's going to help boost this leaf growth. Later in the season, as they start to bulb, I switch to an all-purpose. This is a granular fertilizer, so it will take a longer time to break down, but it will feed the garlic over a longer period of time. So I'm just going to pull back this straw, place the fertilizer down, and then put it back. The last thing I need to do is fill my raised beds. Unfortunately, I got a late start and it's getting pretty late in the day, so I'm not going to be able to finish this today, but I will show you how I do it on one of my beds, and it's pretty much the same for all of them. You can see the soil level on this bed has gotten pretty low, which tends to happen over the winter. Now, initially, all of my raised beds were filled with a mixture of topsoil and compost, probably about 30% topsoil, 70% compost. But since then, I've just been adding compost and bagged raised bed mix to top them off. So I would say they're mostly raised bed mix and compost now, but that topsoil just helps to retain a little bit of moisture. These bagged raised bed container mixes are basically potting mix, which drains really fast, which is great. That's what you want in a container. But in the heat of the summer, I like having a little bit of topsoil mixed in just to help hold on to a little bit of water, but you don't want too much topsoil or it can really harden like a rock inside of any type of contained system like a raised bed. The first thing I'm going to do is pull up my watering grids. I do have a whole video if you're interested in seeing my watering system. So my entire garden is automatically watered with the exception of the few containers I have. So this metal raised bed and grid is from a company called Garden in Minutes. They've got really great products. I absolutely love these watering grids because they're all weather, which means I can leave them out all winter long. I don't have to bring them inside like I did my soaker hoses. So I have some of the metal raised beds and watering grid kits that come together. And then on my my wood raised beds, you can get just the watering grids to fit the size of your raised beds. I don't have the hoses out right now, but you can get custom length hoses to connect all the different beds. So again, I'll link that video below that explains my entire system if you want to check that out. The raised bed mix I'm using today is from Near Source Organics. I've been using it the last couple of years. I really like it. I'll probably need several bags of this. And then, like I said, I'll either top that with either homemade compost or mushroom compost. This is mushroom compost, so it's not compost that's made from mushrooms. It's rather the material that the mushrooms have grown in, and it's very nutrient dense. In fact, if you use mushroom compost, I would lay it down a week or two before you actually plant anything and let those nutrients kind of seep out a little bit, because it's so nutrient dense. I've had it actually burn plants before, like a fertilizer burn. It is organic. This is all natural ingredients, but it's very, very high in a lot of these nutrients. So let it sit for a little bit before you plant. I also have mulch on a lot of these beds. This is pine straw mulch, which is dried pine needles. On a few of my beds, this one in particular, I have some cover crops that I use as a mulch. And for this, I'll just pull back the mulch, add the raised bed mix, and then replace the mulch and the watering grid. And finished. I ended up using 3 bags of that raised bed mix and about 3/4 of a bag of that mushroom compost. It was quite a bit, so I ended up putting some on this little raised bed here. But I did fill this up pretty full because all that's new soil. It's going to compress quite a bit. And I'm definitely going to have to replace some of that mulch. Thanks so much for joining me today. I am beat and sweaty and ready for a break, and I still have to bring in all those seedlings. Again, any of those products or videos I mentioned will be in the description box below. And don't forget to follow me on my other social media channels where I post easy to follow videos aimed at helping beginner gardeners. Until then, I'll see you in the next one. Bye.